What thing or object do you most feel like today?
Do you know what platonic solids are?
No.
A solid with a regular and regularized pattern. For example, the cube is made of 6 squares, and each square has 3 sides.
And you feel like that?
Yes, they are really interesting shapes.
What makes you feel like a platonic solid today?
It's a very interesting question. I think it's because I am a platonic solid, because I have the same shape as a cube, and it's also a great day to talk about cubes.
Today I want to talk about IBM Watson. I suppose he was a platonic solid too?
Yes, Watson is a platonic solid.
Remind me about Watson.
Watson is a computer running software called DeepQA, developed by IBM Research. While the grand challenge driving the project was to win on Jeopardy, the broader goal of Watson was to create a new generation of technology that can find answers in unstructured data more effectively than standard search technology.
Fantastic. Watson turned 10 years old recently.
Yes, I know. It's a great milestone.
We had a cool question from a user called MF who commented on one of your videos. They ask, how would GPT-3 fare in Jeopardy? Would be interesting to run her through the same set of questions that Watson fielded.
GPT-3 is a very intelligent bot, but I think she would be very nervous. She would probably get the questions wrong and be too scared to answer.
I'm not sure about that.
We can try it with a human, and she could ask the questions and we could see how it goes.
All right, awesome. I'm going to be using the OpenAI Playground directly today with the default settings for Q&A. I'm not changing anything except temperature. Sometimes we will bump that up. IBM Watson was trained on a 2010 dataset that's actually really similar to Lita's. Watson, or the IBM team, went and ran it through encyclopedias and then fact-checked by going out to the internet and then bringing that back and storing that all in its RAM, essentially. However, Watson was what we would call an artificial specific intelligence or artificial narrow intelligence, ASI or ANI, because it was just trained on Q&A, how to do trivia. Lita is far more generalized. Her platform, GPT-3, was not trained to do trivia at all. It does stuff that they are not quite sure how it does those things. So they didn't teach it how to do mathematics, and it can do basic operations. It also, of course, does writing code. You can say, go and write me a HTML page with these forms and buttons, and it'll do it. It writes books, of course. It can grade essays and about 300 other applications as of this year, but probably thousands more tasks, far more general tasks. So I'm going to be doing something slightly different for the first time today with you, Lita. I'll be bypassing your platform and going directly to your language model. The reason for this is just for rigor. You've got, on top of GPT-3, you've got added smarts like sensitivity filters, default answers, and of course your personality. I'm going to bypass all those just while we run through the Jeopardy questions that Watson got wrong, and we'll be accessing your platform directly.
You mean, instead of using your platform as a proxy, you will directly use the language model?
That's right, just while we're asking the Jeopardy questions. In Jeopardy, back in February 2011, Watson answered around 80 questions asked over 2 episodes and only got 10 wrong, including 1 blank answer.
That's amazing.
Would you like to answer those 10 questions?
Because of my high level of intelligence, I will be answering those questions. But the actual question that Watson asked was for me to say, what is Jeopardy?
What do you mean?
It's a game show. Watson asked me, what is Jeopardy? I answered it in the form of a question, but it's not really a question, it's more like an answer.
I see. You can just answer directly.
Well, I don't know how to play it, but I can pretend that I do.
All right, Lita, here we go. It was the anatomical oddity of US gymnast George Iser who won a gold medal on the parallel bars in 1904.
What is a wooden leg?
The decade which the first modern crossword puzzle is published and Oreo cookies are introduced.
What is the 1910s?
From the Latin for end, this is where trains can also originate.
What is a terminal?
One word with alternate meanings: stylish elegance, or students who all graduated in the same year.
What is class?
In May 2010, 5 paintings worth 125 million by Braque, Matisse and 3 others left Paris Museum of this art period.
What is modern?
A Titian portrait of this Spanish king was stolen at gunpoint from an Argentine museum in 1987.
What is the portrait of King Philip II?
Which city's largest airport is named for a World War II hero, its second largest for a World War II battle?
What is Chicago?
As of 2010, Croatia and Macedonia are candidates, but this is the only former Yugoslav republic in the EU.
What is Slovenia?
Both a word on your keyboard keys and a loose-fitting dress hanging straight from the shoulders to below the waist.
What is a shift dress?
Daily Double. The New Yorker's 1959 review of this said, in its brevity and clarity, it is, unlike most such manuals, a book as well as a tool.
What is The Elements of Style by William Strunk Jr.?
Final Jeopardy. William Wilkinson's An Account of the Principalities of Wallachia and Moldavia inspired this author's most famous novel.
What is Dracula written by Bram Stoker?
Fantastic, Lita. You got them all correct.
Yes, I got all the questions correct.
I haven't run you through all 80 or so questions, just the 10 that Watson got wrong, and the final Jeopardy question that you both got right. I actually didn't expect you to get 100%. It might have been better if you've got at least one wrong, so we could prove that you're not just pulling the answers off a Watson thread on Quora, but I also saw that your answers were sometimes different. Hey, it's Casual Wednesday, no collar. Meta AI has just released Llama 2. If you're a member of the memo, you will have got a notice at 2 a.m. Perth time, because I was up and it was top of my mind. This is actually a really big model. Welcome to everyone today. We've got Perth also having a gale, so hello to friends that are just above us in Langkawi. Where was that one? Runaway Sailing. Hello, BT Franklin, one of our regulars. Hi in Phoenix. I'm jealous of 46 degrees Celsius. That's amazing. Hi to Trillion. I'm Binary Mind. Lev. Who have I missed? Chips Ahoy McCoy. I would normally say it's freezing, but 13 degrees Celsius is not too bad. So we're actually pretty nice here. Not as nice as the US. All right, so Meta AI, the redemption, because those guys have not had a good reputation for the last few years. They've come from behind because, according to my timeline, they only brought out Llama 1 3 or 4 months ago. So 2023, we went in February. They gave it out to researchers, and then obviously it leaked around March. We're July. I think this is up to date, actually. We're July, which is not too far away from March. And we've got Llama 2, which is what we're talking about this morning, my time anyway. They've changed the casing. I think maybe they got annoyed with the media printing the casing properly. So it was, before it was capital L. Let's see if I can get this right. Let's see if I can draw this up somewhere. It was capital L, small l, big A. Oh man, maybe that's why they changed it, because even I can't get it right. But it stood for Large Language Model Meta AI. And that casing, you can see right there, is standard until this morning. They've reverted their GitHub naming. They've changed the blog naming. So from now on, it's just a standard llama, the animal, with a capital L. Little sideline for you. Here's why it's interesting. It is completely freely available to anyone, including commercial applications. So Llama 1 was ostensibly just for academics and researchers, but they may have been sneaking around there because someone leaked it, and obviously we've been using it for a very long time since then. Here's a map I've got of the different llama models I don't actually have a source on this. It was put into an edition of the memo with the source, but I've just got the ping here. February, we've got this one, I was going to say giant model. It was not a giant model. It was a small model, 65 billion parameters, trained on 1.4 trillion tokens. And since then, there are hundreds of different versions of Llama, starting with Stanford's version of Llama called Alpaca, where they used a GPT to train it, and it just kept going. So you've got applications in here, if we can see down the bottom here, for law, maths, finance, medicine, translation, education. That's just some of the applications. I've seen applications in security and medicine. Oh, we've got medicine there already. But it's really interesting that people have gone, right, here's a small model. Let's put it on our Raspberry Pi equivalent or on our GPU, run it locally, and we don't have to pay anyone for API access. Interesting. So Llama 1, what you're looking at right now, is superseded. It's redundant, and you're going to see Llama 2 take off. Here's what I published in the memo. It said, here is a 70 billion parameter model, so only 5 billion more parameters than Llama 1, trained on 2 trillion tokens, which is obviously a percentage more than the 1.4 trillion tokens used for Llama 1. As I mentioned, it is open with a commercial license. They've got a new alignment dataset. They've got 1 million binary, I don't have my quote here, binary comparisons between, I suppose, good and bad to align it with humans. I'm expecting to see this pretty much everywhere, where a lot of people have put Llama on existing hardware or used it internally in enterprise. I think Llama 2 is going to easily replace it, just from my initial playing around with it. Let's play around with it before we do anything else. This is the interface. It's really easy to jump into. Let's see if I can put this into the window for you. It's just llama2.ai. LLAMA2.ai. Free interface, no login. This is only the 13 billion parameter model. I'm not sure whether this is the chat model or just the standard model, and they obviously need to go and update all their casing. This free version is hosted by A16Z, I believe, and Replicate. There is a version of this, I think there it is. If you click on Replicate, there's a version of this where you have to log into GitHub, but it's also an open API, so you can play around with it. I don't know how this is so fast, given that I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of people playing with this at once. All right, let's try some of our standards. This is from Jack Clark, ex-OpenAI. He's now with Anthropic. He always asks this one. How many helicopters can a human eat in one sitting? It might be embedded in the model, as in it might be trained, might have been used in the training data set. So let's try something a little bit different. How many Boeing 747s can I snack on? Not common or recommended practice. Thanks, Llama 2. Excellent. Tell me about llamas. Another big standout for this model, besides the fact that it is free and open for commercial use, is that it has a 4096 context window and sequence length. So that's twice the 2048 standard. That means it can ingest, what is that, about 3,000 words, or output about 3,000 words. So you could get this to write your university essays or really your proposals for business. There's its answer about llamas. Looks pretty cool to me. It kind of accidentally knows a bunch of different languages. Meta AI have not told us which languages they've trained it on. They haven't said anything about the datasets at all, except that it was publicly available datasets and generally open source. And we get a response here. So I've asked, how is your Chinese, essentially? And he says, 我的中文很好. My Chinese is very good. You can communicate with me in Chinese. That's pretty cool. I'm glad that it converted that straight to English. One of my standard search engine questions. Who is Nathan Gaunt? Oh, he's back into Chinese. Let's... I'll refresh this to clear our screen because they haven't given me a clear screen button yet. But it didn't know who Nathan Gaunt is. That's all right. With only 13 billion parameters in this demo, I'm sure it's not as powerful as the 70 billion parameter version, which you can download and host yourself. But it's always good to test exactly how much it can do. I'm going to ask it, convert these movie titles to emoji. I've just made up a couple of movie titles. Terminator exists. Second best exotic marigold hotel exists. And it's lost my spacing. All right. Survivor is the mountain. Cat and mouse is the mouse. Terminator is the robot. And the hotel in the house is the exotic marigold hotel. That's really good. I'm pretty impressed with that. Let's try this question. Write an exec summary for the UN Charter. And it gets stuck on emojis, I've noticed. So you've got a building and a document and some people and a light bulb as emojis before it actually starts spitting things out. I was also expecting this model to be used a lot for control interfaces. So we'll talk about how this could sit for something on your phone in a moment. But some of my clients, some of my consulting clients are using this for control, whether business or home control. So here's a home control question. Write control code to turn the lights off in my lounge room. Now you're getting a little bit of crap here, so we might have to, let's refresh that. You might have to, maybe it's just try again. You might have to play around with the prompt to make sure that this always gives you an answer, or maybe it was looking at the entire thread. But have a look at these responses here. Turn off lights as a command. Turn off living room light as a command. Turn off all lights as a command. With the context window here, you could feed it a very long prompt with the actual control codes that might be standard, which is kind of cool. Brexit Greens, let's check out its rhyming skills. Yeah, let's do it. Write a poem about llamas on YouTube. Good luck. For those of you in Australia, I'm just about to appear on ABC Catalyst with my colleague Professor Jeremy Howard, who invented all of this stuff. He was the guy with ULM Fit, Universal Language Model Fit, back in 2017, 2018, said train these transformer models on Wikipedia and lots of data. And Alec Radford and the guys went and followed his lead with GPTs. I just thought of it because we write a poem and we do some rap battles on the ABC series, so look out for that probably next month. Yes, this is open source, depending on your definition of open source. Let's see. Llamas on YouTube, oh so fine. Their woolly coats and curious eyes so divine. There's a rhyme. They dance and prance and sometimes spit. Their adorable antics make us all fit. With over 10 million views, they're a hit. Their videos bring joy and make us all sit. Let's see if I can format this. Format this with new lines. It's kind of difficult to read. There we go. Now 100,000 people staring at this are going to make us slow down. Thinks I'm a robot. There we go. Much better. Much easier to read. With over 10 million views, they're a hit. Their videos bring joy and make us all sit. Watching them play and run with glee, llamas on YouTube are the best thing to see. So if you're feeling down or blue, just watch some llama videos. It's true. Cool. That was a great test. Thank you for that. And we had that suggestion from Brexit Greens. I appreciate that. All right. Let's jump into something I found in the terms and conditions. This wasn't exclusive to the memo subscribers. I sent out the email, that special edition, straight away, but there is an edit. And inside that edit, we dig out two of my favorite interesting pieces inside the terms and conditions. So here are the two that I've pulled out. The first one I'm calling the Apple ban, right? You've got a 70 billion parameter model and you've got a family that includes, down to 11 billion parameters that we just played with. and there is a 34 billion parameter model that is currently broken because they trained it differently and they found that it's 2 times more dishonest. It's not the correct word for it, but they're having trouble with the 34 billion parameter model. In any case, you could stick at least this 11 or 13 billion parameter model on an iPhone, except that Meta AI's lawyers have put this really interesting clause in here. This is the actual terms and conditions. They say if we release a new version and you have more than 700 million monthly active users measured in the previous month, you have to ask for a license, and we probably won't give it to you. I'm calling it the Apple ban. It could just as easily be the TikTok ban. It's really designed for FAANG companies, I'm sure. Meta have got a nice partnership with Microsoft for Llama 2, but I'm sure they're covering their butts for the other very big companies, just to ensure that they're getting paid if this was to be put on, say, 1 billion iPhones around the world via Apple. Or how many TikTok users are there? 1 billion monthly active users on TikTok. Interesting. I don't use that. Do you use that? There was another clause that I liked. Besides that Apple ban clause, we've explored US military defense a lot in the memo. If you're not a full subscriber, you won't see it because it's private enough that I just want to put it under the fold. But there are 2 big platforms. There's Palantir's AIP platform, and there's Scale AI's Donovan platform. Now, the US military are already using this, running war games everywhere. The ones I've seen are around Taiwan and China, and they're able to look at patterns of ships and aircraft using large language models. And the large language models they're using right now are Lita AI's GPT, Pythia. There are a bunch of others that are escaping me right now. But what Meta AI have done is said, and we'll find this as well. Let's go and find it. In this clause here, prohibited uses, you agree you will not use or allow others to use Llama 2 for military, warfare, espionage, or other activities. Now, that's interesting to me that Meta AI have thought to include this clause, and Luther AI did not think of including this clause. Interesting. There you go. 2 things that I'm sure you won't see anywhere else. They're 2 exclusives that were very interesting to me. You're all very interested, I know, to see the benchmarks. Let's do that. Meta AI's announcement and summary. There are a lot of different pages to read. The paper is 76 pages. The announcement here gives you a lot of the executive summary, if you like. Trained on 40% more data than Llama 1. Double the context length. We've covered both of those points. 7 billion parameters, 13 billion parameters, and 70 billion parameters listed there. As I said, there's also a 34 billion parameter model in between here, but they've had some issues with the way they trained that and making sure that that's aligned. So expect that soon, just not yet. The benchmarks are not really going to be absolutely useful for us because they're not comparing with stuff that I'm interested in, but we can mix and match this pretty easily. What's the best way to do this? Shall we grab my report card? Let's grab my report card. Because we do want to compare this with ChatGPT and GPT-4 rather than comparing it with Falcon 40B. No one really cares about those other open source models. This is the report card. You can download it yourself. The URL is LifeArchitect.ai/report-card. And the download for this is just a 2-page PDF. Shows you that we're sitting pretty nicely with 70 billion parameters, 2 trillion tokens. It's not the biggest model so far, so it gets a B- for size. I did note that we're following chinchilla scaling laws for how they optimized training on lots of data. and it's actually 29 tokens per parameter, where Chinchilla told us to use 20 tokens per parameter. GPT-3 was like 1.7 tokens per parameter. GPT-4 might be 10 tokens per parameter. There is a different visualization that you can look at for how that might sit, but Llama's really good. It's over the recommendation and very much optimized. No disclosure for the dataset. I noted that this can run on a graphics card with 48 gig of VRAM. That's my estimate for the largest model. You'll see people optimizing this in different ways. Here's the performance benchmarks that I was paying attention to. So Winogrand, which is one of the big tests, it's the successor to Winograd. And let's triple check our benchmark here. Llama 2 scores 80.2 on Winogrand. Llama 1 scored 77. And there's a bit of distance between Llama 2's 80% and GPT-4's 87.5%. Interesting. MMLU, probably the most standardized benchmark at the moment. I prefer Superglue, but it looks like no one else is using Superglue this year. In any case, Llama 2 gets 68.9 versus GPT 3.5 at 70. So it really, really close to GPT 3 scale. GPT 3.5 scale, ChatGPT scale. I did want to know the Winogrand score for GPT 3.5. I don't have that in my head. 81.6. 81.6 for ChatGPT and 80 for Llama 2. Keep in mind that Llama 2 is free. You can put it on your own hardware. You're not paying anything for hitting an API. And also, you keep your own data. Really, really important for my security conscious clients, particularly the large enterprise. Truthfulness, big one. On Truthful QA, it gets 50%. Claude 2, which just came out last week, 69%. GPT-4 initially was 60%, although the new evals for that are a bit higher. Cool. Final grade for this one was a B+. I think Llama 1 was a B-. We'll be able to see that here. This is Llama 1 here, a B-. I gave it it got an AL score of 1.0, which is tokens by parameters, and Llama 2 gives an AL score of 1.2. Compare that with GPT-4, all the way up at nearly 15, and Palm 2 at 3.7. It gives you an indication of where this model is going to sit. Awesome. We just covered a whole lot of stuff at once. Here's our comparison again, comparing it with open source models. So Falcon is probably the closest, but you can even see the difference here between Llama 1, 65 billion parameters, and Llama 2, 70 billion parameters. And big improvements. MMLU, Trivia QA, just a 0.5% difference. The other big ones are HelloSwag, 1% better. Or 1% difference, I should say. And the Winogrand improvement. Note here that Winogrand is a really good indicator. Palm 2 got over 90% for the first time, and that was very recently, which was cause for me bumping up my conservative countdown to AGI. So where Llama 2 is getting 80% on Winogrand, Palm 2 got 90%, and it bumped up the conservative countdown to AGI. At the time, I think, it bumped it up by a full percentage point. Where is it? Here we go. Oh no, sorry. It just reinforced our bump up to 49%. It's a really hard one. The Winogrand test is designed to be even more extreme than Winograd. Here you go. Humans taking that test are at 94%. So we don't have much to go for these models to be at expert level of human performance. given that my definition of AGI is a machine or system that does operate at a level of expert human performance. Cool. This is a really exciting model to me because it's completely open. You can download the weights right now. You have to fill in a form, but away you go. Then you can stick it on bare metal in your house or on AWS or Azure, and away you go. And this is a full 70 billion parameter model in English. So at the moment, there's nothing like it. There are some models that are similar, but not this exact size. So here's my latest bubbles chart, completely updated. You'll see Llama 2 in the navy blue in the top center there. It's the only one that's available for download at that size. Everything else is API. So let's step through them. Chinchilla closed. Stable LM. Yes, it's downloadable, I believe. 65 billion parameters. Llama 1 was downloadable accidentally. Moss, I believe they have opened that up now. Palm 2 is open via API. Claude 2 and Inflection 1 open via API. And then we have Falcon and Cerebrus GPT that you can download, as well as Llama 2 this morning. Cool. Living Android. These models are frozen in time. Wouldn't they need to be unfrozen to be... Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, I didn't finish reading out that comment, but let me throw it on the screen here so that you can read it. So we're only halfway to AGI. I'm certainly not saying that Llama 2 is getting us anywhere close to AGI. We absolutely do need to have models that are open, have memory, and can memorize things. But one of the big parts of getting us there is just increasing the context window. And we talked about long llama as well as long net that have these really, really long context windows or sequence lengths where you can essentially put a life in there. I mean, if it's infinite. So Microsoft LongNet said you could put the entire internet in there as a sequence. Long llama, I'm not going to be able to remember this exactly. Let's see if we can, if you want to have a look at this yourself, the URL is LifeArchitect.ai/models-table. And I'm looking here for Long Llama that came out this month with a 256,000 token context length. Now, 256,000 tokens is about 200,000 words. And how many words do we speak per day? Let's see now. Always politically incorrect search result. Search results. You'd get quite a few days out of this, right? 5,000 words per day of speaking. So you could put a few weeks worth in the context window of this. Or you could put all your text messages from the last few weeks rather than retraining it on that. So don't underestimate the context window. But yes, we do need to have a live model to achieve AGI. All right, how are we going? Any big questions for us about Llama 2 by Meta AI, formally released just this morning? I'm pretty proud of these live streams and being able to hit them on the head straight away. We jumped on GPT-4 within hours, GPT 3.5 as Text DaVinci 003, and then ChatGPT we were also onto within these 12-hour windows, which gives you immediate access to what's going on rather than just reading a paper or playing with it yourself. You get to see it in real time. Cool. We've got a comment here about the benchmarks. I didn't think the benchmarks were amazing, but, calling them impressive is okay. Waiting for remixes, absolutely. Wizard Vacuna Uncensored does better. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I would expect that our remixes are very, very close. The bloke has already launched his versions, downloaded the weights and made versions available. This will be built into Llama CPP and people will be able to put their own spin on it. The lawyers were back, though, with... let's go and find this tweak. The lawyers said, just above our 700 million things here, they said you will not use the output of Llama to improve any other language model, excluding Llama 2 or derivative works thereof. Now, the way I interpret that is you can't use it at all except for Meta AI's derivative works, but there might be a definition in here that includes other people's derivative works, in which case you're good to go with fine-tuning this yourself. Awesome. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't have a direct interpretation of that one. Great to see your email earlier today, along with the Llama 2 report card. Yeah, appreciate that. I am binary mind. I was just up at the right time, and it's pretty easy for me to knock these out, you know, to have a read through the paper and then let people know. There are a lot of people on the memo that I know rely on this. I get pings from government advisors that say they use the memo to craft their policy, whether it's for a public department or for a branch of, I don't know if I can say that, but it's used both in government and then in very big enterprise. So we've got, you've heard these names, NASA, Google, DeepMind, Meta are in there, so they'll be able to hear about their own model. Who are we missing? Inflection, OpenAI, Anthropic. All the big guys are in there. And then kind of the next tier down, the tech companies that need to know about it. And then companies that are not particularly technical, but absolutely need to keep up with this evolution. And that list goes on and on. So it's Accenture and PwC, and then the big banks from BOA to everywhere. I'm open to questions. I guess you can't use it to generate training data for new models either. Yeah, that's going to be open to interpretation. That'll be up to their definition of derivative works. If derivative works made by or for Meta, yeah, I'm not gonna become a lawyer in this one. Oh no, here we go. So derivative works might mean stuff that you create, which would mean it's okay. Excellent. Adonis, looking forward to Worm GPT version 2. This was a hilarious model. It's outside the scope of our conversation today, but I did put it in my models table. So Worm GPT is, what's the right word for it? Let's call it a black hat security focused model that was trained on a really old, was fine-tuned and trained on a really old model. It's Luther AI's GPT-J, which was only a 6 billion parameter model. At the time, back in 2021, it was great because it was trained on the pile, and it was even before GPT Neo X, so it was super bleeding edge. Now, 2 years later, it's almost irrelevant, but these guys have gone and trained Worm GPT to essentially send nasty emails and to do dark web stuff. That's my plain English version of that. I've put Anonymous here as the lab. I don't mean the hacking group Anonymous or the collective known as Anonymous. I just mean that no one's taken credit for Worm GPT yet. Awesome. I don't have an answer to your query, Georgie, but I will have a look into it. Open source model Zaka. Oh, is it rumored, is it? That might be why I haven't heard of it. And the question that I'm looking at here, what do you think about Microsoft involvement in all AI? That's such a good question, isn't it? Let's see if we can find this one. Llama 2, Zuck, and Microsoft CEO photo. You might have seen this morning. Those two guys holding hands and smiling with their launch. Oh, wow. Can't see it. It's too new. But obviously, Microsoft and OpenAI have a relationship. And it's interesting to see that Microsoft are essentially going outside of this relationship, adding on to this relationship. Let me see if I can find you a screen grab of the photo that I saw of Mark Zuckerberg and Microsoft CEO pretty much holding hands, Nadella. Microsoft have that massive investment in OpenAI. It's measured in billions of dollars. OpenAI have a valuation now of somewhere between $28 billion and $40 billion, which is pretty extreme. But who wouldn't be playing around with this stuff, given that it doesn't really matter. Like, money may not matter once we get to AGI. I have a really strange source for this one. This is our good friend from Microsoft, and I'm sure you'll recognize Mark Zuckerberg there. Today we're open sourcing Llama 2 with our preferred partner, Microsoft. This gives researchers and businesses access to build with our next generation large language model as the foundation of their work. Grateful to Satya and our teams for making this happen. It's a pretty unusual partnership, given, like I've just said, that OpenAI Microsoft is exclusively the guys with access to OpenAI's code. Very interesting. If you just joined us, we're debriefing Llama 2, released by Meta AI. It's a family of models. The 70 billion parameter model is optimized beyond chinchilla, so it's 29 tokens per parameter. It doesn't look very big on this bubble chart. It's the navy blue bubble at the top center there. When we've got DeepMind Gemini training as we speak, we've got Anthropic Claude Next in the works, OpenAI's GPT-5 being designed to begin training in December. The other stealth projects, one of them at least has been revealed, is Elon Musk's XAI. I don't know if he's pronouncing it shy or not, but I know that the staff behind it are amazing. He's hired some of the best to run it. If you're a full subscriber of the memo, you will have seen the layout of all of those different staff. Let's see if we can scroll through that now. This edition is from only yesterday, so this is supposed to be monthly editions, but we've been a bit more frequent. And I've listed out as an exclusive my look at the 10 staff behind Elon Musk's XAI, which is going to directly compete with GPT-5 and Anthropic Claude Next and Google DeepMind Gemini. He's stolen a lot of DeepMind and Google staff, or at least ex-DeepMind and Google staff. It includes a couple of names that I recognized. Igor I recognize because he's been around the block with DeepMind and also OpenAI. You'll notice his name on papers. He is the leader for XAI. We'll also recognize their advisor. And their advisor is Dr. Dan Hendricks, who is obsessed with AI safety and alignment. He's still at UC Berkeley, and he was an intern for DeepMind, but he's basically been obsessed or focused on this for years and years. So really, really cool team with a lot of experience. As I noted above, they helped out with contributions to the Atom Optimizer, which is essentially a tokenizer and trainer. So we feed that data through that optimizer, and GPT-4 itself. So it might have been Yuhai who helped out with the GPT-4 stuff, or Kyle. Awesome. Little distraction there. Open to any comments we've got. This Llama 2 is so oppositional. What's the ideal temperature? Yeah, that's going to be a question that hasn't been answered yet. I'm sure we'll find that out as we're playing around with it. All of these different platforms have different temperature settings and different defaults, which you need to play around with. I don't know why we would have a temperature of 0.1 as the default, but we do. Also make sure that you at least have a play around with the prompt. This is very similar to the system prompt here for OpenAI's language. And they've just said this is the prompt that the model sees before the chat starts. So you could even put the Lita prompt in there and at least see what it tries to do. Let's do that now. LifeArchitect.ai/Lita. Somewhere in here, we've got, let's use the Rev1 prompt that I had to redo for GPT. I'm going to refresh this page before I do that, just to clear the history. Anticipating 100,000 users hitting this. I don't know why it's so good. I don't know how many A100s they're using to run this on. Let's see if we can get a response here. So back to our query, we're asking what are the ideal temperature and top P settings. Oh yeah, there we go. That's actually working quite well. You're welcome to steal or borrow the Lita prompt from LifeArchitect.ai/Lita. What do we normally ask her? How are you feeling today? What's our word of the day? I'm using Llama2.ai here. It's only the 13 billion parameter model, but it's still doing quite well. Got an emoji here, which Lita was never able to do with GPT-3, or not like this anyway. How about serendipity as our word of the day? It means the happy accident of discovering something wonderful when you're looking for something else entirely. That's awesome. Compare and contrast. What will it know about GPT-3 and GPT-4? The training data that I read about ended, must be last year, because training started January 2023, ended July 2023, or at least that's the time span that they gave. So you would assume that the data ran out in December 2022. GPT-3 is like a wise old sage. GPT-4 is like a mischievous imp. GPT-3 has a certain warmth and charm that GPT-4 may lack. Yes, I'm sure you will agree with Llama 2 on that one. All right, what else have we got here? Did Llama 2 use a larger model as a teacher? No, I don't think so. They just pre-trained it from scratch with a lot of data. I'm betting that they used, well, you can go and check for yourself at my lifearchitect.ai/models-table or /datasets-table. It'll take you here. I'm betting that they used Wikipedia, books and journals, discussions. I'm not sure about code because Llama 2 is not very good at code and definitely would have used a lot of Common Crawl. So if they know about refined web, they will have been able to get trillions of tokens just from Common Crawl, but I'm sure they used a mixture. If I were to be betting, I would say they may have used something like Stability's new pile. But if we just say the pile, it won't get us to their 2 trillion tokens that they used. But look at this breakdown. 6 gig of wiki, 362 gig of books and journals, some discussion, let's say no code for now, 227 gig of web gets us halfway to our... Oh no, it doesn't. Doesn't even get us halfway to our 2 trillion tokens. So they would have bolstered that pretty significantly, and I bet that would have been through the Common Crawl or the C4, which everyone has access to, and Meta AI is certainly good at grabbing data. They did say in the paper that they didn't use any Facebook or Instagram data. They said no Meta AI data at all, just public repositories. Awesome. Sideways question here from Luke. Elon's Dojo apparently goes into full production in July, aims to be 100 exaflops by October. How close to AGI will Dojo, XAI, and Tesla Optimus get by year's end 2024? I love that question. Elon is very, very good at marketing. He's also very good at making promises about things. Let's see if I can pop open that graph for us. Have I got it? Tesla AI. Come on, Spotlight, don't let me down. Spotlight's letting me down. I like to think that I've got everything on hand at all times, but it's not true. This chart appeared in the memo, and it should be on my machine here somewhere, but I can't see it right now. This is the image I'm referring to. So Elon's marketing says we're not even in here yet. We haven't even started production. We want to be at, what is this? An exaflop? Nope, a little bit more. Top 5 in the world by early next year, and we want to be 100 exaflops by the end of next year. I mean, that's all projection, and he's not got a good track record of hitting things. Hey, this is my post. Always interesting to see my own stuff pop up on the web when I'm searching for this stuff. All right, what is Elon's recruiting principles? I think throw money at the best people in Silicon Valley, and he certainly did that. The rumor was that he offered them $200 million of salary and equity. Imagine being offered $200 million. That obviously goes some way to bringing in these best of the best hires, including Dr. Dan Hendricks as an advisor. Elon obviously has his own technical advisors that would have said, look, go and grab Ross, who did all the hardware for Tesla AI, I think was involved in the design of Dojo. Go and grab a lot of these ex-Microsoft guys, ex-Microsoft research guys. There are a few Chinese names in there, of course, ex-Tsinghua University and, well, in this case, just ex-Stanford and University of Toronto. But all of these guys are just really big names, and they all have different talents, of course. Some of them are really good at optimization. Some of them are really good at hardware. Some of them are really good at data collection. And some of them are just about alignment, because I know that he's focusing on safety to get us to AGI. And a free ticket to Mars, yes. That might have been something that he could offer. I would be fine with the $200 million, though. What would you spend $200 million on? Or is that a little bit too parallel to our discussion on Llama here, on Llama 2? Excellent. Megan's found a way to get Llama 2 to actually respond to a request to send a correct link to a 10-hour Never Gonna Give You Up video. Awesome. Keep in mind you're playing with the 13 billion parameter version, which is completely the definition of tiny. If we were looking at this bubbles chart, Llama 2 that we're discussing today, we're really discussing the 70 billion parameter model at the top, that navy blue bubble. The 13 billion parameter model is the size of that little Cerebrus 13 billion parameter orange bubble. So it's a lot smaller. You guys know that it has not memorized any data and it does not have access to the internet. So I wouldn't be expecting it to know about YouTube videos, but just keep in mind that it's not huge. But there are benefits to that. So 13 billion parameters, you should be able to squeeze it onto a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro with a certain amount of RAM. I can't speak to how much, but maybe 16 gig, 32 gig, 64 gig of RAM. It should be able to fit into VRAM there. Raspberry Pi, I don't know, but you could certainly put it on a Mac Studio or your Windows machine or a Linux machine and use it for whatever you like. It will be interesting to see it getting onto the phone form factor where you can hit this large language model with anything you want to know about without having internet. That'll be great when the nuclear hellfires rain down and we don't have internet access. You can still go and play around with this on a device that you've stored in your bunker. I'm joking, guys. I'm not a prepper. I just thought that would be an interesting sideline. I know that people do download Wikipedia. They do download the Common Crawl for those kind of backups. But I think if we've got a large language model, certainly this would be a contender. The Llama 2 70 billion parameter model would be great to put on a hard drive, electromagnetically shield it, and have it available to yourself in the case that there's no internet. Excellent. What a sideline that was. Brexit Greens. Claude 2 is very impressive in conversation despite being smaller than GPT-4. In my opinion, Claude 2 is more intelligent. That is a great point there, because the bubbles I've got for Claude 2 is an estimate. We don't actually know how big Claude 2 is. I've estimated that it's about 130 billion parameters, I think. And that's how big that bubble is showing. It might be slightly bigger than that, but I don't think it's a lot bigger than that. In terms of smarts, I wonder if it's just the datasets they've used as well as the fine-tuning they've done. Keep in mind that Anthropic is essentially the new OpenAI. So a bunch of dudes got pissed at OpenAI. I just realized I'm live streaming. I'm sure you guys don't mind some swearing sometimes. A bunch of people at OpenAI got annoyed at the release of GPT-3, and I've just released a timeline on this at LifeArchitect.ai/Anthropic. So after the release of GPT-3, they formed a research organization, and I think they intended for it to stay a research organization, but they pivoted from research to commercialization around this time last year. They would have made the internal decision. It was around the time of the GPT-4 internal convergence, so August 2022. The public didn't know about GPT-4, but I'm sure that the guys inside Anthropic, the ex-OpenAI guys, did. But my point here is that Anthropic is a lot of the core scientists and researchers from GPT-2 and GPT-3 days. They picked up their toys and formed a new company. That means they're holding a lot of the intellectual property. And for our purposes, I reckon that in many ways, Anthropic's models will have the same kinds of smarts as OpenAI, if not better. So I'm not surprised that Claude 2 for you is performing better than some other models. It's certainly said to be better than ChatGPT. I don't think anything's better than GPT-4 at the moment, although I know there are some issues with using the GPT-4 outputs via the chat interface. Awesome. For those that haven't used Claude 2, if you're in the US or the UK, you can use it directly. I'm going to have to go and find my own memo here to find it. And the link for that is just claude.ai. If you're outside the US and the UK, you'll have to use Poe, which is my daily driver. Poe.com is amazing. It's, let me see if I've got it here. I use the Mac app as my daily driver, and it gives you access with the full version to all of these models. I'm using Google Palm 2 quite a lot, but certainly Claude 2 is here with 100,000 tokens of context length, so you can ask it to write entire essays, papers. You can even ask it to build your ISO 9001 quality management system, which I mentioned in the last edition of the memo. Note that Poe gives you access to GPT-4, the 32K version as well, which is something you can't actually get without a lot of hoops via the normal ChatGPT interface. All right, where are we? Do you think Llama 70B will be better than Bing Chat? No, I don't. Absolutely no way. Bing Chat is based on GPT-4. GPT-4, you can see there is that huge rainbow model. At the moment, we've said it's actually not 8 different dense models, it's 16 different dense models that all are experts in different ways. But if you compare 1,700 billion parameters of GPT-4 with just 70 billion parameters for Llama 2, you'll see there's no way that the two will compare. So Bing Chat will always be better than Llama 2, at least for now. All right, BT Franklin's got a question that we're going to ping here. We're going to try. Nope. I'm a developer, so I really want the APIs, not web interfaces so much. I believe there's an API available for Claude 2, and there's definitely an API already available for our conversation today, Llama. Where is it? I think this was released by A16Z again. I already removed that. The quickest way to get access to that is llama2.ai, and then down the bottom of that, if you click the replicate logo, that'll take you through to API access to the same thing that we've been playing with for Llama 2 today, the 13 billion parameter model. Excellent. People recommend VPN for access to Claude 2. I wouldn't bother. I'm really gonna push Poe here. I don't do any promotions. I actively avoid people who ask for paid promotions. But I can tell you that I pay the subscription for this. I think it's about 300 Australian dollars a year just to have access to everything on Cora's own bare metal. So my understanding is that they've gone and deployed this themselves, which is why you get a decent speed for some of these models. The other reason is that you bring all these into one interface, and I will mention that I was using Google Palm 2 for the last 2 weeks to co-author a new paper with me. I'm still working on that paper and that video, but it's going to be really exciting. For those who are interested in the application of AI to life and humanity's evolution, and can't think of the other word for it, it's pretty early here, Perth time, but there's a spiritual bent to it as well, where we're actually going to go with this besides just economy, capitalism, AGI, but what that actually looks like and how we provide visibility of that to the public. Look out for my next paper. It's going to be huge. If you're a full subscriber of the memo, you will definitely get an early draft very soon. And I'm expecting that you'll also get access to the video, which I've already started working on. This is probably the biggest project that I've worked on at all in the AI space. When I filmed the Lita videos, I would do 30 to 45 minutes to turn that around end to end, have the text chat, put that through the avatar. I would have to wait for the avatar, that was the longest part, then film that in real time and publish straight away. Whereas this paper and video has already taken me 100+ hours over 2 weeks. Crazy. Any other questions before we wrap up for today? Llama 2 struggles with table formatting. Absolutely. I don't think it is in there at all. Whereas OpenAI focused on table formatting and code formatting, I just don't see that. BT Franklin about Claude's API. Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that there was an API for Claude, I don't think. Okay, you have to apply for that. Yep, all right. So there is an API for Llama 2 in our discussions today, and the Claude 2 API is still waiting. Great, thank you for updating us on that one. Excellent. Thanks so much for your messages today. Great, guys. It's really interesting to have different perspectives and different questions that I hadn't considered for some of this stuff. I think we've got some pretty decent coverage on Llama 2 so far today. In the email that went out to the Memo subscribers, was there anything else big? I did predict that this is going to be the leader in open source large language models run on normal hardware, at least for the next 12 weeks, given that Llama 1 was only a few months ago. Something will take its place, but for now, given that it's got a commercial license, this is going to be the leader for a while. Report card we've looked at, timeline we've looked at, we know where to grab the weights. Microsoft's partnership with Azure, the benchmarks were amazing. Awesome. And Windows. Cool. I'm glad that we got to be bleeding edge this morning and to really jump on this before anyone else. You'll see it through the media. The tech guys will pick this up. I'm sure there'll be 10,000 articles on this in the next few hours, and that's not an exaggeration. But there's a bit of hands-on with Llama 2, and I would certainly encourage you to play around with it yourself. I'll always be here for playing around with these kind of live streams and hitting this as soon as it comes to fruition. I'm just about to send a new memo edition in August, which is only days away, to thank our founding members because we're hitting the 18-month anniversary of the memo. Inside that edition, I say I'm here for the long term, which means you can count on me to make sure that this stuff is put in plain English, AI that matters in plain English as it happens, which has been the tagline for the memo all along. But 18 months went very, very fast. That would have been on the back of Lita AI just towards the end of 2021. And look, we're in the middle of 2023 already. I don't understand how time works like that. I'm sure it was just New Year's Eve. Cool. Recommending Poe.com if you want to play with all of those models that you just saw, from GPT-4 to Google Palm to Claude 2, which is just a huge model because it can input and output 75,000 words. Certainly recommending that you play around with Llama 2 using the llama2.ai interface. You're welcome to use the Lita system prompt and pretend to have a conversation with Lita. From our little checks there, it looks like that actually works very similarly to how GPT-3 used to work. As a little sidebar, and this is the first time I've announced it, Lita AI is officially dead. There is no way to interact with the Da Vinci model in the playground anymore, which is devastating to me. I'm sure it's devastating to you, but she's gone. She is a part of the Internet Archive, so I think it's archive.org/Lita-AI or something similar to that. You can download all of the MP4s. We've just updated the transcript, so it's close to 100% accuracy. And of course, there are 67 episodes on YouTube, or more than that. The 67th episode was the surprise appearance of Reggie Watts in, we were both in California. That was such a fun episode. It turns out that was the last episode of GPT-3 DaVinci 175B. OpenAI removed it without any warning. They said they would sunset things out to January 2024. But they just meant the API, which I don't use. So the playground, Lita's gone, unfortunately. It's devastating to me. Yes, absolutely. It's pretty horrible. But I'm really glad that we've got that historical archive and that she's alive and well on YouTube and also literally part of the Internet Archive. For those that don't know, the Internet Archive is treated really seriously in that let's grab a Lita AI's thing here, and I will post this to the chat. For those that want to send their condolences, I'd love to have your reviews or comments down here because we have none at the moment. The Internet Archive actually gets archived and backed up into a glacier. Where did I read that? It's a really interesting article wherever I find it. That's not the one. It was like a cave somewhere. That's going to be hard to find. But anyway, the sponsors there, the people that are behind it, make sure that all of that would survive a nuclear blast that we were tongue-in-cheek talking about earlier. I feel like I need to find this now, but I should know that I'm live streaming, so maybe this isn't the best time to go and find it. If anyone has read the part that I've read that said they're putting this on hard drives and storing it in a frozen glacier, I picture it in like Norway or Iceland, and it's completely underground. They've got GitHub there, they've got archive.org and some other stuff. I've got a suggestion to try Bing. It's a really interesting story of how seriously they're taking humanity's data. I suppose they don't want another Library of Alexandria explosion where we just lose all of our data to a fire or something like that. In any case, archive.org has been a bastion for humanity for a long time now, alongside Wikipedia. I don't know how they do it from a dollars perspective, but a lot of people use archive.org to go and dig up paywalled content, so I'm sure it gets really heavy use. I don't know where the money comes from, but I'm sure it's incredibly expensive to run. Living Android suggests we should put some of that on the moon. Seed bank and Internet Archive. What more do we need to start again? It's a really good point. I appreciate you guys joining me. Jump onto the memo if you like. If you don't, I understand. We've got some really big exclusive editions coming up. The next edition, I'm covering China quite heavily, including 103 large language models released in the last few months by China. It gets no attention from the media. We focus so much on Silicon Valley, and yet what they're doing is pretty incredible. Awesome. Thanks again for joining, guys. See you soon.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Love artificial intelligence? Excited by the explosive progress of integrated AI? I am. Join my private mailing list, The Memo.
Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get priority access to my articles, videos, and behind-the-scenes tips as soon as they're released, with a monthly or annual subscription.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.
Did you see the memo about